Hello everybody and welcome back to part 19 of the Revell 1/44 scale Flower Class build. This week I've been catching up after having a week off from the Flower Class, at least last week, and this week I've been concentrating on getting the two ships boats built and the Carley raft platforms built. They're entirely from the Pontos etch brass set, so they're quite involved. I'll cover that in this video. I've also been doing a bit of rectification work after some comments from 2 or 3 people who've watched the videos. The first one was in relation to the colour on the front of the bridge here and on the 4-inch gun. You remember, I think I mentioned it last week, that I'd got it wrong and just painted those in the white. But a couple of people pointed out that actually they were blue, so I've been back and repainted the bridge and also the 4-inch gun there as well, or at least the shield is painted in the blue, so that's all caught up with. I've also removed the shield at the side of the hedgehog here. Jim, who's been following the build, pointed out that I'd got that in slightly the wrong place, so I've removed that now. And I'll reposition it. It just needs a little bit of rectification work done on the deck where the glue has pulled away, and it just needs a little bit of repair. But Jim, I've followed your advice and we'll get that in the right position when we come to fit it. So let's kick off and I'll show you how I built these 4 racks which mount the Carley rafts on the sides of the ship. Okay, I'm going to start off this time with the Carley float platforms. There are 4 of these, and we're going to be building them completely from the Pontos etch brass set. And these, as you can see here at the bottom, are mounted to the side of the ship and bridge over to this after superstructure. I've already got all the work I need to do underneath these, so it's okay now to go ahead and build these, and we'll fit them as well in this episode. I'll also do the Carley floats from the Revell kit, and a bit later on we'll sort out the ship's boats as well. So I'm going to get the heater on because it's cold today, so there will be a bit of background noise in today's video, but I do need the heating on to do this sort of delicate work particularly. So let's get the parts cut out. I think we'll be soldering some of this, so we'll see how we go with that as well. This is the starboard forward rack which houses the oval shaped Carley raft, and these are made a little bit more difficult because of the Pontos instructions. They're not absolutely clear as to how this folds up, but I've gradually worked it out. So I'll make the port one on camera. This is one of the side frames. There are 2. So we'll fold this part up first. There are some flanges all the way around the outside of this, and they're quite narrow, so it's important to get a good grip of the part before we bend. It's important to fold these in sequence, because if we bent this one and then the lower one, we'd have trouble getting in to bend this side piece. So you've just got to think ahead a little bit before doing these bends. So that just forms a box really, and then this folds all the way through 180 degrees just to double the thickness of this side frame. Just to hold that together, I'm just going to solder that little tab at the top. and at the top here just some super thin or extra thin super glue. We'll just lock this plate in position. That's the first of the side frames. Do the other side as well. Next we'll fold up the frame that the Carley float actually sits on. And the first thing to do with this is just to bend it through 180 degrees. It folds back upon itself, and we'll just solder that just to give it a bit of strength. Just a case of putting some solder along the joining face at this end, just on the inside. I'm just going to run a bead of solder along the edge. At the ends we have these, well, the stops really, just to stop the float falling off, although I guess it would be lashed to the frame as well. And these need to be folded up, and we've got quite a number of very small bends to make right at the end. And it's worth soldering those, because having a number of folds to try and form a box type structure doesn't really work if you just fold it up and leave it, because it is open. The solder fills the gaps in and makes it look a bit more solid. So that's a much better option. On the underside we've got this deck as well, which needs to be fitted in. That's this part here. This piece folds through 180 degrees before bending up to form this lip around the edge. And now it's a case of getting this together. And I want to make sure that we've got a mirror image, so just try and work out which way this needs to go. Just worth checking to make sure that that's square, because the bottom of these legs fits into a small cutout in the side of the Revell hull, so they've got to be the correct distance apart, and we'll make sure that they are the correct distance apart by getting them nice and square on this top frame. We now need to ease this deck part in between the side frames. Just ease them apart ever so slightly. Once we've got that box arrangement made up, it's relatively strong, and just check it again for squareness, And then on the underside we've got this cross brace which just fits on the underneath like that. We've then got some reinforcing brackets on the sides and one down at the bottom where this leg meets the whole side. This bracket which fits at the bottom doesn't go right down to the bottom of the leg. We just need to leave about 0.5 millimetre of leg at the bottom, and that just allows it to tuck down into the hull and leave this plate flush with the top of the hull side. These are the Revell plastic floats. They would look better in 3D printed parts or some resin, but I'll make do with the plastic. It's interesting that the promotional pictures of the kit with the Pontos set don't show any of the Carley floats fitted, so maybe they weren't too keen on them either. But they'll have to do. I'm not going to be buying 3D parts, and these go onto the float frame like that. I'll probably have to think of some sort of lashing for that. It looks a bit strange just balanced on top. So we'll do something, I think, to help those a little bit. So those are the forward frames. It's time to have a go at the aft ones now. So these go together in much the same way as the forward stands do, but they've got a little bit of a difference with these plates which go on the outside of the hull. So I'll build them up as I've done the previous one, and then when we're ready to fit these different parts I'll come back and show you how they go together. I've made the two side frames, the top rack and the bottom platform or shelf in the same way that I did for the forward mountings. The difference now is this plate which goes on the outside, on the outboard, and this one just has a couple of flanges on the ends which you just fold up. The side frames fit into these shallow slots, so I'll just glue those in position. I'll just loosely position that platform in place because I'm not sure that I'll get it in afterwards. It's not easy getting all those parts together at the same time. But once they're in place, I'll just lock them like that with some super thin. Just slot the cross brace in position like that, and again some extra thin super glue. I love this stuff. It's brilliant for etch brass and doing constructions like this where you don't want to solder it. The top frame here isn't handed like it is on the forward frame. These projections are equally sized, so it doesn't matter which one we fit. So I've another one of those to make, which I'll do off camera, and then we'll see what the oblong Carley floats look like on top of them. These aft frames have a couple of slots in them here, and these are for some eyelets, which are presumably to lash the Carley float down with. These are microscopic, really. It won't really matter that much, I don't think, if they don't go on. But we only get them for the after mounting, not the forward ones, which is slightly strange. I'm sure there must have been something on the forward ones. So those are the 4 mounts, together with their respective Carley floats. They're ready to be primed and painted, and then we'll fit them onto the model later on. But next I'm going to do the couple of ship's boats. These are actually dinghies. So we'll get those made up, and we should be able to do some assembly back onto the ship. For the ship's boats we just need the 2 hulls. The rest is all in brass. We'll just give those a bit of a clean up. First thing to go in is the bottom boards. Just check for fit first. Just got a bit of an ejector pin there that we just have to remove that. The next thing to fit are some small brackets. There are 14 of them that go around the perimeter here. I think they were called knees, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. There is a technical term for them on a boat, but I can't remember exactly what it is. Whatever they are, they're very small, and they do take quite a bit to get them fitted. It's one of those sort of parts that sticks to the tweezers rather than the model, so they can be a bit frustrating. I'm just hoping Pontos have given us enough. That's 8. Oh, there's a whole batch here, so yeah, there's plenty of spares. And that's quite unusual for Pontos. Normally they give us more or less the number that we need, but in this case obviously they're expecting us to lose some. So that's what we've got to get on. See what I mean? Super glue's a frustrating medium sometimes. It'll stick when you don't want it to, and then in this case it won't. I think the tweezers might be a bit dirty actually. I'll try again, and if it doesn't work I'll give them a good clean. No. So don't struggle with them, just give the inside of the tweezers a clean. It's inevitable on parts like this when you're working with such small pieces of brass that you do get traces of super glue on the end of the tweezers. So just give them a clean every now and again, and hopefully that'll just help fix these parts in place. There we are, easy with a clean pair of tweezers. Once you're happy with those, I'll just drop a bit of super thin glue in there, because I've put so little on the part as I was fitting it that you just need a little bit extra just to bond it. So that's all those little brackets fitted. The next thing is to fit the top. And I'll just use some medium super glue to tack this in place. And sometimes you just have to do them a little bit at a time. It's very difficult to get the super glue to grab all the way along. So it's down at the stern there. So the part's located, it's just a bit loose amidships here. So if I pin it down in the centre, I can just run some super thin in there. That'll close it up. Just have to clean the side of the hull up when that's set. We want to make sure that is closed up, because it looks strange on a boat when you've got a capping on like this and you can see a gap when you're viewed from the side, and of course you do view these boats quite a bit from the side, so it's worth just making sure that that's closed up. So with a coat of primer that'll be okay. The next thing is to fit the man ropes at the side, which are these parts. Just want to impart a little bit of a curve on these just to follow the line of the hull. And again, it's one of those parts that we just want to locate one piece at a time. So I'll just glue the two central connection points first. These are very awkward to fit accurately. It's just a case of being patient with them and just locating them one piece at a time, or one location point at a time. And then once the central two have set, which I think they more or less are, you can shape the other location points It's another session where I've got super glue all over my hands. I'll do the same for the other side. Next I'm going to make the cradles for the boats, and they're straightforward enough. Obviously two different shapes for the different curvatures on the hull. So I've got to get the right one for the right position. This is one of the aft ones, and it's 4 layers of brass, as you can see, with some, I suppose, feet for the deck. So this is a 4-way bend. Like that first, and then over on itself. And obviously we want to get these all lined up, all nice and equally spaced. I just want to solder along the top there just to seal the 4 layers together. That's all it needs, just to hold the top together, and of course that's hidden up to the hull of the boat. I'll just bend the feet down now, and we just want to make sure that they're absolutely flat and the cradle stands upright, so I'll just push that down onto the bench. And that will stand up on its own. I've already made the forward one for these boats, so we'll get these fitted now. It'll give them something to stand on, obviously. The position of the cradles is determined by the shape, so as soon as the profile of the cradle meets the hull, you know that it's in the right position. To make sure that they're square and vertical. They're actually quite a tight fit onto the keel. You've got to push them down quite a long way and just secure them in place with some extra thin. Each boat has a pair of keels to fit, which are these parts. These are fairly tricky to fit because there's such a small contact area with them. So I just get one end positioned and secured. And when it is in place, again, just use some super thin just to lock the part in position. So the keels, the last part for these is the rudders. And again, as you can see, we've got to fold this through 180 degrees, double the thickness of the brass. Just have to bend the brackets first before I solder it. I don't want to solder the brackets together. Or two halves of the brackets, they need to be splayed out to the side like that. And again, just seal around the edge of that with some solder. Just use the solder there as a bit of filler just to close the two halves together. And then that can be glued onto the stern. Okay, so that's all done. We've got two of those. All ready to be painted and fitted. There's our collection of boats and rafts. In this episode I also want to get the final bits of shields sorted out. There are another couple of shields to build. This is one of them that's integral to this Carley raft mounting here. But there's one further forward, so I'll just build that up. And then we can go to the ship and get some of these parts fitted. These shields have a number of brackets on the back, so we'll fit those. It might have been a mistake removing all those from the fret because they're different lengths. So I'm just going to have to be careful to make sure that I get the right ones. I'll pair them up. I'll start with this one, and we have a fold to make on the end of this shield, which is marked like that. Actually, there's some rivet detail on the reverse side of the shield, so soldering it will block those, I think, at least with my soldering skills at the moment. So I'm just going to glue those in place. We're going to be painting them and fitting them pretty quickly, so this should be safe enough. This shield has a davit mount on it fixed to the side. The actual davits from the Revell kit, so I'll get that out. Just remove it from its base. We've obviously got some replacement tackle as well This small bracket goes on the bottom of the davit, so it folds something like that. I think we'll just have to clean up the bottom. Try and get that positioned just where we want it. So that bracket fits onto the bottom. It's fairly tricky to get positioned properly. We have a ring which fits onto the top. I'm not sure what that adds really. Not a lot to that. And hopefully the davit should just fit on the top. There's no pin or anything to hold it. The tackle, or elements of it, the wheel and the hook, I think, yeah. The tackle just needs to be folded up. You have to use glue on these. I couldn't solder that without completely obscuring the detail of the pulley and the hook. We have to remove the moulded in pulley, and then this will fit onto the top. This leans up against the bulkhead here. And just leave that to set. I've actually got another of these to build for the shield just behind the 4-inch gun. So whilst I'm in the swing of doing these, I might as well build the other one up. I'm just opening out the hole in the top because this davit goes all the way down and into a plate at the bottom. Just going back to the ship's boats, one thing I forgot to do was prepare the davits. And there's quite a bit of work to do with these. These are the Revell kit parts. And they need quite a bit of cleanup. And there's also a lot of brass in the Pontos set to fit to these as well. This is the main block and tackle for the boat davits. The block is in 3 layers, which needs folding up. These 3 sets of chains actually will fit into the boat like this. So now we have to fit this to the davit. Originally these plastic davits from the Revell kit had like a ball on the end which Pontos expected us to drill out, and I tried to do that on a couple of them and it just disintegrated. This Revell plastic is a strange sort of plastic really. It tends to just snap away. So I lost that at the end. So what I'm going to have to do is just glue this into position, and I'll create a new ball from some sprue glue or something like that. But in the meantime, I'll just position these parts onto the davit. These brackets just go on the side as well of the davit. So that's as much as I can do with these davits for the moment. They've got some pieces which go across the top and join them together, but obviously I have to do that once these are in position. So I'm going to call that enough for the build this week. Let's get these painted up and we'll get them on the ship. I just need to do something with these Carley floats. They're a bit bland as they are, so I'm just giving them a wash with some MIG. This is the brown wash it's actually for desert vehicles, but it's fine for this use. And it also brings out the detail that Revell have got in the floors of these floats. I may do a bit more detail painting of these as well, see what they look like on the ship. I'll just leave that to dry for a while, and in the meantime I'll just do a bit of detail painting on the two boats. So I want to pick out the floorboards, or the bottom boards, and these parts on the inside. So for this I'm going to be using some Tamiya lacquer wooden deck tan. It's a nice thin paint so we don't block up the detail on these etched brass parts. I don't need to worry too much about this because we've got some oars to fit which covers most of this detail up. So I just want to just suggest the wood inside, it's not that visible. Just weathering up these floats a little bit, they're a bit too pristine, so I'm just using the wash to dirty them up. Okay, let's get some of these parts fitted now. So the first thing to do is to fit the Carley raft platforms. And these go into some slots that are already moulded into the Revell hull side. So they will be our main contact point for these parts. And the aft ones, they just have to rest, unfortunately, on the side of the hull. It's not a great contact point there, so I just have to think how to do that. I think all I can do is put some glue on the hull side. I won't fit the floats yet. I want to do a bit more work on those. I'm not completely happy with them yet. This side shield is a splinter shield for the crew of the 4-inch gun. The shields are really difficult to fit because they've got very little contact for the glue, and it's virtually impossible to fit them without getting a bit of glue on the deck. So we'll have to come back and do a little bit of touch up on those once the glue's set. The shields on the starboard side are a mirror of the one that I've just fitted, but I'm not going to do that just yet because I've removed the shield at the side of the Hedgehog. Jim, who's been following the build, pointed out that I'd slightly got that in the wrong place. So I've removed it, Jim, and we're going to be refitting that. But in doing so, I've damaged the deck, taking that off. So we need to do a little bit of touch up, then we can come and fit this shield, which is the mirror of this one on the port side. So I'll just put those to one side. We have this davit here, which is presumably an ammunition davit. It's positioned right next to the 4-inch gun platform, and it covers a hatch which we fitted a long time ago in the build behind this shield. The ship's boats are located in this sort of position. But as you've seen, we've got the davits to make up, which go on the outboard side of the boats. And the 4 Carley floats make up this week's work. Okay, so that's another bit of progress for this week. And as you can see, the model's looking fairly complete at this stage. All the major structures are done now, and the rest of the work involves really detailing parts, very small parts, mainly from the Pontos set. I was intending to try and finish this playlist, this series on the Corvette, in 20 episodes. I'm not certain that I'll be able to finish this in the next week. I will try, but I don't want to rush the run into the finish of the build, and I might have to spread over into another 2 episodes, so finishing in part 21. We'll have to see. So next time I'm going to be focusing on building the masts and the radar lantern, which goes here at the back of the bridge. I've got the galley flue to fit on the side of the funnel, and I'll do the rest of the detailing as far as I can on this aft superstructure. As I said, I'll try and get as much done as I can to try and complete the model, but I think I really am going to have to spread over into episode 21. So the next part, part 20, will be coming up as usual next Friday at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be posting another Mosquito episode. That'll be part 4 of the Mosquito build, because I've been doing a little bit of work building the wings this week on the model, and because of the complexity of the Tamiya kit, the wing assembly will take up a whole episode. So that'll be coming up probably midweek next week. So in the meantime, look after yourselves everybody, enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.